Hey there, thanks for tuning into Duckbricks. I'm Chris, and welcome to an early review of all of the brand new LEGO Star Wars 2025 sets. From Revenge of the Sith and Clone Wars inspired vehicles, to many more of the mini-scale vehicles, plus even a buildable character and a 4+ set, there's really something in this wave for everyone. And it's one of the most interesting and diverse LEGO Star Wars waves yet. And so, without further ado, let's jump on in and take a look at every single one of the brand new LEGO sets. We have the buildable Grou with hover pram here. We also have the ARC 170 Starfighter making a triumphant return. The last one we got was all the way back in 2010, so it's super exciting to see this. We have Ahsoka Tano's Jedi Interceptor. Really cool to get a brand new minifigure of Ahsoka as well as midi legs with the character. We haven't actually seen this ever in this particular LEGO brick built form. And then we have a number of midi scale sets. We have the Home One Starfighter, or Star Cruiser, finally in LEGO form. We did technically get one as part of a diorama style of set all the way back in 2009, but it's really cool to get the actual ship as a LEGO set. We have a 4+ version of the Mandalorian's N1 Starfighter, and then we have the Acclimator class assault ship, which is seen a lot in the Clone Wars and Revenge of the Sith. Altogether, this makes up the 2025 January wave for LEGO Star Wars, and let's jump in right now. Okay, here is our 2025 January LEGO Star Wars lineup. Despite its small size, it's one of the most interesting and diverse waves in a long time. Part of the wave is made up of a couple of sets celebrating the 20th anniversary of Star Wars Revenge of the Sith, with many more sure to come later in the year. The other part of the wave is dedicated towards continuing the midi-scale ship line, giving us two vessels we have never seen before, for the most part in LEGO form. Then we get a buildable baby Grogu for the second time, but this one actually does come with the hover pram and the scale down, and then finally a Mandalorian N1 4+ set for good measure. It's one of the most diverse waves that we've ever gotten in a long time. Usually when we get LEGO Star Wars waves, they're kind of focused around one particular era or one particular type of celebration for a certain movie or show, but this time we're getting a pretty eclectic and diverse lineup of different sets, and many of which we've never actually seen before in LEGO form, like Ahsoka's Jedi Interceptor, and even an ARC 170 Starfighter, which we haven't seen since 2010, making this a triumphant return for a very iconic LEGO Star Wars vessel. Altogether, I feel like this is one of the most interesting waves, and unfortunately, one of the most overpriced as well. I'm sure folks have seen online, I am not the first person to say this, that the prices of some of these sets are pretty ridiculous, and we're gonna dive into those when we take a look at the individual sets, but it's honestly kind of crazy to me just how they were able to get away with these prices. Whether or not these sets are going to sell well or maybe have their sales impacted because of the prices remains to be seen, and I'm really curious what folks think in the comments. Do you think that some of the prices are justifiable, or what price do you think they should be? Still, price aside, this is one of the most anticipated waves yet because obviously there is a big focus on the Clone Wars era, which a lot of folks are really excited about, and then we're finally getting the Home One Cruiser as well as an Acclimator Cruiser for the first time in LEGO form, outside of a Home One diorama that we got, which was really more the interior and not the actual vessel. And with that, let's just go ahead and jump in and take a look at these sets starting from the smallest to the largest in this mega review of the January 2025 wave. Starting off with the smallest set of the wave, we have 75410 Mando and Grogu's N1 Starfighter. It comes with 92 pieces and retails for $30 US, but this is a 4+ set, so value for price or part is completely thrown out the window. I think the most exciting thing about the set for a lot of collectors is the inclusion of R5-D4. We have not seen R5 in a LEGO set since the Sandcrawler in 2014, the UCS version, so it's actually really cool to get an updated version of it that is fully printed. Shame there's no printing on the back, especially because LEGO has showcased they can happily print astromechs on the back if they want to, but it is still really nicely done, and I love the dirt and damage to the front of the cone here, which really makes it fit within the Mandalorian universe. The rest of the figures we have seen before. Mando does come with the standard Pedro Pascal face there, which is a nice new color of the headpiece for LEGO that they did a couple of years back. He does wield the Darksaber and features arm printing, which is very, very nice. Always good to get a fully detailed Mandalorian figure. Lastly, it does also come with Grogu in the hover pram. This is the simplest version of the build because again, this is just a 4+ set, but I think it gets the job done okay. It's pretty solid as a build, and it's always good to get Grogu. We actually got a spare piece in my copy of the set, which was just another copy of Grogu's head. I don't know if that is common across all of the sets, but it was a surprise to be sure, but a welcome one. Not sure what I'm going to do with another copy of the head though, so it just went in my minifig head bin. The main build of the set is focused on the N1 Starfighter, and this is it. It features one exclusive printed element on the front of the ship there, and you can place Mando in with the jetpack attached, close that up, and then there's a removable dome to place Grogu inside. No studs for Grogu in there, he just kind of sits inside there, but I think it just gets the job done okay, and there you have it. This is the Starfighter. So obviously this is a 4+ set. It is very, very simplistic. It almost kind of feels like a Lego set we would have gotten back in like 1999 in the early days of Lego Star Wars, especially because they use this classic Lego cannon piece for the blasters, and I think it's okay for what it is. I mean, obviously this isn't really my thing because it is just a 4+ set. The only thing I do have to say that even for a 4+ set, $30 is kind of ridiculous for this. Yeah, it has 3 minifigures, and one of them is arm printing, and it does have the new printed element, as well as a large piece being used for the base of the ship, but still, I do not think that justifies $30 in the slightest. It is under 100 pieces, and I mean, if you look at other Lego sets, even in the 4+ category, Ninjago has an amazing 4+ Ninja Spinjitzu temple out that is a huge building that is only $40. And it is 4+, so for $30, this feels remarkably overpriced, even for a 4+ set. I would have expected this to be $20. I would have been complaining with $25. I think I would have been complaining, but it would have been like within the realm of reasonability. But $30 for something like this just is kind of wild, and especially because of how small the ship is. I don't really know if it just makes that much sense compared to a lot of the other Lego offerings. But that's about all I have to say about this small one. I have a lot more to say about the other ones, so let's move on to those. Next up, we have 75401 Ahsoka's Jedi Interceptor. It comes with 290 pieces and retails for, I mean, that can't be right. It retails for $45 and 45 euros. Yeah, see, the thing is, this is one of the most overpriced sets of the new year already, and that is such a shame because I am so torn about the set. I genuinely really like this set. I don't really quite understand a lot of the complaints about the windscreen. It is a new piece, and I mean, we'll get more into that into the review. I love the minifigures. Ahsoka is phenomenal, and a new Anakin for the Clone Wars variant without the tattered robes is fantastic. Also really good to get her astromech as well, and the build itself is so much fun. It's very swooshable, it's very solid, and it does feel like an upgrade over previous versions of the same type of craft. But at the same time, while I love this set, I cannot in good faith recommend it at full price to anybody looking to purchase it. It does not make any sense to me. 290 pieces. Okay, let's say it's because this piece is a new piece and it's specially colored. Sure, that's a big part of it. I guess the 2 new minifigures do cost money to make, so that's another part of it. But it's 290 pieces, you know? 35? Like, that's okay. I think 35 is already pushing it. Like, this is $25 to $30 at most for the, like, size of build it is. My hand is bigger than this ship, and I mean, I guess I do have large hands, but they're not that big. I mean, it shouldn't be bigger than a $45 set. It's what it is. You know, $45 is kind of crazy for this, but with that aside, I will try to be as fair as possible for this review, and again, these sets were provided to me for free by Lego, but that does not at all influence what I think. It does not matter if it was sent to me for free because, frankly, I would have bought everything anyway, so it does not matter. I have to be fully honest in my review. It is ridiculous how much this is. That being said, though, let's take a look at the build, and it actually is a pretty solid build. You, of course, have the standard interceptor functionality where you can fold out these wings, and it just looks super good in flight. I really like how swooshable this is. It's a lot of fun to play around with, and you can kind of like play it around with the fixed wings, which is very solid the way they've been attached via Technic instead of by click hinges this time, so they're not wobbly at all. You have 2 different stud shooters. At the bottom are the spring-loaded missiles, a place to hold the missiles, as well as either Ahsoka's lightsabers as well. There are 2 clips for the lightsabers, so that is nice to get. And then, of course, you have this brand new cockpit piece, which allows for more brick-built detail on the back. That all opens up like so, and you get easy access to the interior. There are a couple of strange things they've done here. They basically have made this not attach on by any studs, and a lot of people are saying, oh, well, if they used the old cockpit, that would have solved the issue. I mean, yes, it would have if they had studs on here, but they easily could have made it attach on by studs by just using this as a studded plate, like having 4 studs across here, instead of just having it sit on tiles. Unfortunately, because of that, when you're switching it around, the cockpit will just open up. It does not stay in one place, and that is a major flaw of the set. The good thing is, though, that if you do want to change that, literally just swap out this piece for a piece with studs, and it will work totally fine. I don't really know why they chose not to do that. I guess they wanted it to be very easy to open and close without there being any sort of resistance for younger kids, but I feel like, again, LEGO went a little overboard on that, and they totally didn't need to. It would have been totally fine just having stud attachments here, because this piece does attach onto studs when it's fully closed up. Otherwise, though, I think the shaping is quite nice. You have a lot of nice detail factored into the build. You have it looking really like one of the best versions of the Interceptor we've gotten, and I do like the brick-built attempt to showcase the unique pattern Ahsoka has on her Jedi Interceptor. They didn't quite pull it off exactly the same as it should be. Like, it really should be more like this, like with this length being the same here, angled outwards, but given the amount of pieces they had to use, I think they did about as good of a job as they could have, and it's always good to get these new wedge-style elements integrated into the build like so. And that is, of course, not to mention the minifigures. The minifigures are phenomenal, and I have to start off by highlighting Ahsoka Tano, and this minifigure is just really, really well done. They've finally actually given her mid-legs, and previously she was just using the standard LEGO minifigure legs, and I love how we finally got a Clone Wars early season, or I guess this is kind of like season 3 version of Ahsoka Tano that is actually detailed and accurate to like the standard LEGO minifigure designs and not the stylized Clone Wars version, which is really, really nice. The torso printing is phenomenal. I love the amount of detail they were able to factor into there with the front and the back of the print. You have the nice headpiece with the expression that looks really good for the character, and then a nice new coloration for the Ahsoka Tano headpiece here for the Leku, which look very good. Altogether, having mid-legs being used for the character is really fantastic. It is such a clever idea to use mid-legs for the character, and I hope that LEGO will continue to differentiate between like teenagers versus adults versus kids in future LEGO Star Wars sets, because this is just done really well. It's the perfect version of the Season 3 onwards Ahsoka outfit, and I'm a big fan of how they pulled it off. The same can be said for Anakin. While Anakin is a little bit less interesting than Ahsoka, he definitely is just kind of utilizing his standard robes. I think it totally makes sense for an episode 3/final seasons of the Clone Wars version of Anakin, and this is accurate to his depiction in the only episode that Ahsoka's Jedi Interceptor ever appeared in. It was just in the beginning of one episode, and that actually makes sense because this was the outfit he was wearing. Finally, we have gotten a version of Anakin from episode 3 that doesn't have the tattered and ripped robes that were present on his Mustafar version. They did just reuse that same minifigure for the Mustafar version back when we got Anakin's Jedi Interceptor a few years back, and the tattered robes made no sense to include there, so I'm very happy that we actually got a regular version of the character here, and the printing is really solid. The black on dark brown looks really elegant, and it is fantastic to be able to get a later season version of him. Lastly, we have Ahsoka's astromech droid, and this one is a good one that obviously appeared right back in the very first season of the Clone Wars, and I think it looks really nice. It's been a lot of time since we got our last version of this astromech, and again, no back printing, which is a bit disappointing because they have demonstrated they can do it if they want to, they just choose not to, but I think overall the printing is really solid. It feels a lot more realistic compared to the other version that we got, which was more oriented towards the Clone Wars stylization and the stylized type of animated design, so this is super nice. And there is a very nice slot to place the astromech inside the ship instead of just having to remove the head. Altogether, it's a really fun build, and the new windscreen piece I actually think looks pretty good. A lot of folks have said the more like original version that was kind of rounded as one singular piece was a lot more accurate. And I don't know, I mean, I've looked at a lot of photos of the Interceptors, both in the show and in real life, I guess the real life animated version in the Revenge of the Sith, and I think this shaping is actually not that bad. Sure, the older cockpit maybe looked a little better in some ways, but I actually really like how this gives you the option to brick build the back and really customize the color scheme here. The only major downside is that the way this is printed, the white printing on the cockpit is just not as bold enough as it should be compared to the rest of the white on the set. It is a little bit faded, you can clearly see it is printed on trans black, but otherwise I think this is really solid, and it is a very, very good set to get for fans of the Clone Wars or fans of Ahsoka Tano. It's obviously a ship that literally only appeared like once across the entire series and then never again, but I think it is solid. Obviously, you can kind of headcanon this went on a lot of other missions with the characters before its appearance one time in that one episode, right before Ahsoka leaving the Jedi Order. So altogether, it's pretty solid, great to have the minifigure fit very nicely in the ship. But then again, I hate to bring it up again, but the price, $45, what is LEGO thinking? I honestly kind of hope that this set does not sell well, because I want to give it a message to LEGO that people are not willing to spend this much money for something this small. And it is unfortunate because it is an amazing set. Like, it is really nicely built. I think it's a lot of fun. There are minor complaints I have with the way the building techniques were done and everything, but overall it is very fun. It's just the kind of set that should be fun for kids to be able to play with on like allowance money. Like, kids should be able to save up $20, $25, even $30 for something like this and then feel satisfied when they can get it. $45 is just ridiculous. So that's pretty much all I have to say about this one, and we can move on. Next up, we have 75404, the Acclimator class assault ship midi-scale version, which comes in at $50 US and 450 pieces. This is the very first time we have gotten this particular variation of the Republic assault ships in LEGO form, and it is a very, very solid and nice build. First of all, I have to point out the fact that it is using all printed details. That's right, there are no stickers on the set, which really does help make it feel like a bit more of a premium product. I love the amount of building techniques that went into this. You have studs on the side being used for the inner stripe in dark red. You have the wings being mounted at just a very, very slight angle, which is really nicely done. And on the underside, you even have it looking very good from the underside with studs on the side, details on the side here. You've got some great details here to kind of close up the side of the vessel here, and you can see it's all just mounted using Technic on the inside. And there are even little Easter eggs, like little white studs, which I guess are meant to represent like either clones or maybe Republic gunships inside this vessel, which is really fun. I like how they have little hidden Easter eggs inside these midi-scale ships. You've got the glowing engines with the roller skate element factored into the build, which is very nice, adding a bit of detail to the back. And then the front cockpit is also done really nicely for the command bridge here. Just really nice studs on the side detailing for the back and very, very clean shaping. Altogether, this is really, really solid, and it looks fantastic in a LEGO Star Wars diorama. I want to get like a ton of these and then hover them all around the UCS Venator. I think that'd be super cool to have them be flying all together next to each other. And overall, this is just a really solid build. It's very nicely done. Sure, it is just a big flying gray triangle, but I think that does diminish it slightly. There's a lot of like color here with the dark red with studs on the side. It just is a really satisfying build to put together, and the shaping is really impressive. It almost looks like a boat from the side, which is really well done. You have angles coming in here, angles coming up here, angles coming in from the sides, all sorts of different angles being used to mount bricks in interesting ways, and I'm a big fan of how they were able to pull it off. Of course, this does have a display stand as well, so you can mount it on the display stand, and you can see the printed detail on the bottom of the ship here, where it says the Acclimator class assault ship, which is very nice to see that printed for the tile. And altogether, for $50 US, this has almost 500 pieces. On paper, the value is there. Like, the value price per part wise is there, but price per part is not everything, as we have evidenced in many, many other reviews. And I think that for this ship, the only complaint I have is that it's really not very big. Again, this is another ship that fits right in the palm of my hand. Sure, it's a little bit bigger, but it doesn't feel $50 big. When I think of a $50 LEGO set, especially compared to a lot of other LEGO themes, I'm expecting something pretty big and hefty that I can play with. Maybe even like double the size. Maybe not double, but close to double the size. And obviously, a lot of those pieces went into really fine detail. You can see the layering in the wings to give it a dark gray stripe along the side of the wings. You can see the printed pieces, all the little bits and pieces that went into making the engines. Obviously, This was done such that it was the most hyper detailed it could be while maximizing the small pieces being used. But the unfortunate downside is that, yeah, this just feels a little more expensive than it should be when you have the final product. As other LEGO reviewers like to say, it's not just about price per piece, it's about the price per volume of stuff that you get. And I don't really feel like I am getting $50 worth of LEGO in this set. I hate to be so negative on the prices of this wave, but I do want to be fully honest when I am giving a review. This is not supposed to be like a sponsored post. I'm not advertising a product. I'm giving my honest opinions on what I think. And what I think is that this is a nice build, but $50 does feel like a little bit too much. The mini-scale ships have always skewed to be on a little bit more of the expensive side, some of them more ridiculous than others, especially the ones that came out earlier this year, and this seems like it continues a trend. Like, $50 is a lot for this, but it's not ridiculously high. Like, I could even see LEGO charging like $60 for this and then that getting crazy. $50's alright, $40 would have been a lot better. I think $40 is actually the sweet spot for something like this, especially with how detailed it is, but $50 I can sort of begrudgingly see. Hard to recommend at $50, but if you can get it on sale for a little bit, I definitely would recommend it. You know what would make these a lot better though? If they just chose to take out one grill and place a minifigure on there. You know, give us a clone trooper, give us a, I don't know, General Yularen, bring him back from the UCS vendor and throw him here. That'll make people happy. But you know, in all seriousness, I do think that these would benefit significantly from a minifigure being included on the display stand. LEGO Star Wars designers have stated that they chose not to include minifigures in these sets because they felt like people might be confused with the scale, and if a kid were to get it, they would wonder, why is the minifigure so big compared to this small ship? But I think that's a little bit silly. Like, I think it's very obvious that these are supposed to be like different scales than the other LEGO Star Wars offerings, so a minifigure would have helped a lot. Like, this plus a minifigure, I don't care, it could even be just like a generic Republic officer, just call it good. $50, I would have been a lot happier with it, but as it is right now, it feels a little bit overpriced. Let's move on to the next set. At long last, the ARC 170 Starfighter is back. This is set number 75402, ARC 170 Starfighter, and it contains 497 pieces, 3 new minifigures, and retails for $70 US. And oh boy, the prices just keep on coming. Still, I'm gonna start with price aside and just start by looking at the model itself. This is a bit smaller than the prior versions of the ARC 170 Starfighter we have gotten in the past, but it makes up for it by being a lot more compact and having one of the most clever mechanisms I have ever seen for a ship like this. Instead of turning a gear on the back and waiting ages for the little winglets to open and close, the opening and closing of the S-foils is as simple as this. Boom, and boom. Boom, and then boom. It really does bring the boom, and it's really fascinating to see just how LEGO mechanics have improved over time, where previously there was a gigantic gear mechanism that inflated the pieces and the size of the model, and now you literally just take a bar that you push on the back, push it down, and then onto the side, you can see that the winglets open and then it closes up just like that. It is super, like almost ingeniously simple how this works, literally just by pushing levers back and forth with each other. These wings are geared towards each other on one axis, these wings are geared towards each other on the other axis, diagonally speaking, and then this just kind of splits them apart and brings them together. It's very, very smart, and I'm very happy with how it looks, because then you can finally replicate those scenes in the film where they say lock S-foils in attack position, boom, and then there you go, the wings are ready to go. Altogether, this is a really nicely built set. I do have some minor quibbles with the way that it looks from the underside. I think it is a little bit weird to have like a layer of plates and then just like a gap here, and I guess that is supposed to facilitate the function, but I don't know. It feels a little bit weird to just have like a random 2x6 plate stuck on the back. I almost feel like it should have just been like a 2x4 back here, or maybe something that is a bit more angled, because as it is right now, it does feel very blocky near the bottom, but the front of the ship is really nicely done, and I do like a lot of the angles being used here to really bring the craft to life. For instance, you have these studs on the side being used sloping inwards here. You have a nice stickered element here, but that does continue the dark gray pattern. Little bit of color here for the lime green at the front, which is a nice callback to one of the actual details that you can see in the movies and the shows, which is really nice that they integrated that little bit of detail. I like the usage of the roller skate blades as the engine intakes here. I think that works out very well for this. And then of course, you have the little winglets here with some really nice detailing. What's also special is that they've actually colored a print for these 3x3 circular elements to open and close. They did not do these as stickers, they have this as a print. I'm actually not really sure why they chose to do these as a print and not like the Republic logo, which maybe would have been a more useful print, but you know, I'm not complaining. It actually is really nice to get printed elements, and then underneath, you even have a sticker showcasing the mechanical detail. Of course, on the back here, you have the option to move the guns around on mixel joints. So you have the dual guns up and down, back and forth on either side. This top one, you can't really go back and forth just because the way it's mounted, it's kind of just stuck going up and down, but I think it's okay for what it is, and it's good to have some amount of articulation there. But overall, I'm just like really impressed by how simple this feature is. It's very satisfying to be swooshing this around. You open it, you close it for maybe top speed, and then you open it again to lock into attack position. It just looks really good and is just a great rendition of the ARC 170. Even though it is a bit smaller than what we've gotten in the past, it is the most stable, the most sturdy, the easiest to play with and swish around, and that is really emblematic of modern LEGO building techniques, where back in the day, they would have sacrificed stability and detail for making models feel bigger, but now they've kind of gone in the completely opposite direction. They have sacrificed some amount of size to make them be a lot more compact, but also a lot more detailed and a lot more sturdy. The only major downside that I have with the way this was done is that the stickers on the cockpit just do not look that good. The white very clearly does not match the white of the rest of the ship, and it is blatantly obvious with this sticker right here. It just doesn't really look right to have just the white coloration be completely off, and that is a bit disappointing. Same was the case for some of the other stickers that we saw, and even the other prints that we saw for like Ahsoka's Jedi Interceptor, so that is a little bit unfortunate. And even for like these stickers here, like this white part is supposed to hide the gray brick here, and this is supposed to be all white, but it very obviously is a different color because the sticker just doesn't look right. That's just one thing I hope that LEGO will fix, and the crazy thing is that like the 2010 version of the ARC 170 had stickers that had better opacity than this, so I don't really know what changed with LEGO to make it worse. It also is a little bit strange to have these even as stickers at all, because if you don't have them aligned correctly, you could see little bits and pieces of air bubbles inside the stickers, which is never fun to have on something like this, so I just wish that LEGO would have printed these pieces instead. Moving on from that though, the rest of the ship is really nice, and let's take a look at each of the minifigures. We actually get technically 4 minifigs in the set because we get the astromech as well, and I guess I'll start off with the astromech. It's a pretty standard one in dark green and white, and I think it looks okay. Again, really wish that LEGO would standardize printing on the back of astromechs, especially because they know how to do that now, so don't really know why they didn't do it for anyone other than R2-D2 and only in very expensive sets. They're treating it like it's ARM printing or something, which it really isn't. Like, it's kind of a given that if they can print on the backs of these, they should, but altogether, it is a nice little astromech, and we can move on to the rest of the minifigures. The rest of the figures do share the same exact torso and leg prints, but it is good to finally get 3 individual ARC 170 pilots in a set. One of them is Captain Jag, one of the named characters, but the other ones are pretty much just generic. The only thing is, again, I feel like these legs were begging to be dual molded, like the light gray and white should have been dual molded. Obviously they didn't have the budget for that, but it just feels very obvious that that is what they should have done here. But taking a look at the minifigures, all of them are identical. I like the new head print being used, utilizing the Tamura Morrison style face print and shade with the visor on this time for the pilots, but each of the helmets are different. You have Captain Jags, as well as all of the different pilots. I think these all actually correspond to named clones, which is really nice. I'm gonna have to like rewatch the Clone Wars to remind myself of which ones these were, although I don't remember the ARC 170 pilots getting a huge focus there anyways, but it is nice that they are doing specific characters with different styles of helmets. Always very good to get more clone troopers, especially in a style like this. And I really like the minifigures. I feel like they are the best version of the characters that we could have gotten. Overall though, let's zoom out and take a look at the ARC 170 Starfighter in terms of value. $70 US. Again, yes, that is $70 for, what is it, under 500 pieces? Yeah, 497 pieces, so basically 500 parts is a lot. And I don't feel $70 worth of value in this set. It just, honestly, just does not feel that good to me in terms of value. I feel like when I'm swooshing it around, I'd be very happy at $50, and I feel like it really should be $50 if you look at the price per part ratio and you look at what you get. I mean, maybe 55. 60, I would already be complaining. Like, 60 does feel like a lot for this, but 70 is kind of crazy. Like, what is going on with the prices of this wave? And again, I can't really recommend this at $70. I'm sure it's going to be very popular. I'm sure LEGO knows that, and they know they can happily charge $70 for something like this. And if you want this and you feel like it's worth $70, who am I to stop you from having fun and getting this? I mean, I'm definitely part of the problem, because if I wasn't sent this by LEGO, I totally would have gotten this on day one. I mean, it's a new Arc 170 Starfighter. It's really exciting to get it again in LEGO form, but I think that LEGO knows that, and they're kind of taking advantage of it when it comes to the price. So if you can hold out for a discount, if you can show LEGO that maybe $70 is too much even for a very fan favorite popular video, I would recommend try to hold off, because I really hope that LEGO would be able to do something like this a lot cheaper in the future. I know if I was a kid and this was $70, that would be really unfortunate, because if I were saving up my allowance or getting stuff with my own money, 50 is a lot more fair than 70 for something like this. So it is what it is. Nice to get a great Arc 170 from LEGO, aside from some minor quibbles like the way the bottom of the ship is built and then the actual sticker opacity for the white color. This is a really nicely designed set. Just can't recommend it at the price. Next up, we have 75405 Home 1 Star Cruiser, retailing for $70 and coming with 559 pieces. Aside from an anniversary diorama in 2009, which showcased the interior of this vessel, this has never been depicted in LEGO form before. And this is really, really nice. I think that MIDI scale is the best way to do something like this, where maybe a gigantic UCS version of the ship would not sell that well. It's not the most popular ship, but it's something that's very iconic and something that fans have been asking for, so MIDI scale makes a ton of sense. One thing I really love about the set is that there's actually a lot of Easter eggs factored into it. If you remove this side of the ship, which is clearly meant to be removed, you can see on the inside there are little Easter eggs to all sorts of characters. You have Admiral Akbar yelling, "It's a trap!" in the control center here. You have the green and white A-Wing Starfighter, which was present in the early diorama of the Home 1 Mon Calamari Star Cruiser, which we saw all the way back in 2009. And then we have a little nod to Rebels and Ahsoka with Hera Syndulla being used there, as well as other characters from the series, and I guess that's supposed to be Chopper down there. Altogether, this is just really nicely built. I'm a big fan of how they were able to use all sorts of different shapes to convey a very fantastic build, and I have no idea where this piece goes. Oh my. There we go. And altogether, I think that the shaping of the vessel is really nicely done. You even have a little Nebulon B frigate on the side here that is meant to be a very small microscale version of it next to this ship, and everything is just really nice about it. It's very swooshable, it feels almost like a submarine, which is obviously what the design of the ship was meaning to convey with it being a Mon Calamari ship, and I just love the amount of little pieces and little details factored into the entire build. You've got little bits of coloration here, like sand blue just being used very sparingly, dark red, dark tan. You have some of the windows on the side, as well as a nice detail for the engines on the back here. Very, very cool to see that amount of detail factored into the set, and altogether, this is a very, very solid MIDI scale vehicle. The shaping is perfect. It's actually very clever how it's shaped at the front, utilizing these curved pieces mounted at an angle to have the front vessel of the ship. That is really, really nicely done, and there are some pretty cool, slightly new elements being used to actually pull this off here. If I can actually remove one of these pieces here. This right here is a brand new kind of a slope element that is going to come very much in handy throughout a ton of other LEGO sets, and I'm very happy to see this being introduced for this set. It's just really nicely done, and I'm very happy with its integration in this build. So altogether, this is a really nice rendition of a build that we've never seen from LEGO before for the exterior. And again, MIDI scale was the perfect way to depict something like this. But of course, we do have to talk about the price, as what seems to be the common theme in this mega review. 75405 Home 1 Star Cruiser comes with 559 pieces, and it's $70. And again, it is one of those MIDI scale sets where it is really hard for me to ascertain what the value should be. A lot of those pieces go into tiny little details on the ship, like even when you look on the inside, there's a lot of interesting construction being used to achieve the angles that it achieves, and to really make it as detailed as possible. Because of that, the price per part ratio is not even that bad. It does come with a lot of pieces, but again, in terms of value for what you get, value for money, 70 feels very, very high for this. 50 would have been a lot nicer. 55, I could see. 60, pushing it. You know, you're getting up there. I don't know how I feel about 60, but maybe. But 65, 70, anything over 60 just feels way too high for what you get. Again, don't really know how well these are selling. I'm very curious to see what folks think about these sets and if they are going to sell well. Clearly, the MIDI scale line, which is comprised of very, in my opinion, overpriced builds that look very nice on display but are very overpriced, are selling well enough to warrant them giving us more and more, so clearly there is a market for these. I'm sure the adult fans of LEGO are just big fans of these vessels in general, and even maybe casual fans of LEGO, but people who love Star Wars would love to get this for display and maybe aren't quite attuned to what a $70 LEGO set should give you in terms of value. But as someone who has been in the hobby for a long time, it definitely feels like this is a little bit overpriced. That's just what I think about the set. I definitely think it's an amazing build. I do like the detailing. It just should be a little bit less expensive. That's all for this one, and let's move on to the final set. Last up, we have 75403 Grou with hover pram. It comes with 1,048 pieces and retails for $100 US, which is a very nice surprise to be sure, and a welcome one, especially compared to the prices of a lot of the other sets on this list. Altogether, this is our first fully buildable version of Grou that comes with the hover pram. The previous version we got was before we even knew his name. It was marketed as the Child, and it was much larger than this one. And I like how technically the heads are still compatible with each other, so you can place the big head on the small body and vice versa. Grou comes with a number of different accessories to play with, including the Navarro nummies, the blue cookies as snacks, as well as a Sorgan frog here, which is actually really, very well done compared to what it looks like in the show. It is very realistic and just looks exactly like the in-show and in-universe version does, so that is a very nice little addition for him to play with and, I guess, eat, as well as the little ball that he plays with as well, which was part of the control stick on Mandalorian's ship. Altogether, it's actually a really solid build. I like the curvature for the hover pram. I like the way that the face is done. It's very cute. It is not uncanny, thankfully speaking, and the information plaque being printed is very nice to see. Let's take a closer look at the main model. So this is Grou with the hover pram. I think the only way it could have been improved is if they actually made a mechanism to close it up. I think that would have been really cute, but I think that with the pieces included, with the price of the set, they did a generally good job, and I think having it open does also just make sense. You can, of course, remove him from the pram, and we'll take a closer look at the pram in a little bit, and this is Grou on his own. He's just a really small, cute little model. The arms are just mounted on little movable axles here that do have friction, and if you actually want to articulate them, you do have that option. So you can control him with gears on the back. Bionicle is so back, baby, because you can control him using the gears and twist them back and forth like so. So from the back, you can actually cause the arms to be raised and lowered, which is very cute and just adds an extra level of playability to the set, which the other versions do not have. Of course, you do have the option to be able to move around the head as well and angle the ears, which is super nice to see. You have it just mounted on a simple ball joint, so you can kind of move him, have him look back and forth, even rotate the eyes if you want, and of course, bend the ears up and down just ever so slightly, which is very cute. I really love the way they actually brick built the nose, which might be my favorite part of the build. It's literally just using a hinge element, just fully closed up, not acting as a hinge, but it works really well for the nose of the character. It's really well done, it's very clever, and yeah, the entire build is just really nicely built. I feel like a lot of times when LEGO does these buildable characters, it is very easy for them to drift into the very weird, creepy, or uncanny valley. And thankfully, this one did not suffer from that problem. It is genuinely really nicely done and very cute as a little character. I especially love, again, that gear function on the back, adding a lot of extra life to the character, just being able to raise and lower the arms by moving the gears, just make him feel like he's alive. You can hold him in your hand and he can make noises, of course, and he can move his arms around, so very nicely done. And even on the underside, you can see the little toes on his feet just represented by studs, which is very cute. The main build though is actually the hover pram here, and it is a pretty large build for the set, but I actually really like the amount of detail that went into crafting it. Making a fully rounded kind of hovering Lego pram is actually really hard to do the larger you get in scale, and I think they really pulled it off well. You have pieces being used at an angle here, as well as in conjunction with studs on the side techniques for these rounded elements. They used these large dome elements introduced for Lego City a couple years ago to act as the back of the pram, which make total sense, and I think they totally work out very well for this particular use case. And there's just a little bit of smattering of stickers just to add a bit more detail. And again, the opacity on the white for those stickers isn't quite right, but thankfully because they are placed on, in this case, a light gray part, and in this case, a white part, it's not that big of a deal, and they blend in a lot better. Of course, you do have the mechanical detail here showcasing the pram being opened, and on the inside, it actually looks very cozy and inviting in there. It is just a nice little space for Grogu to sit, with the brown interior being very cushioned and round, and then you just take him in, you can place him down in the pram, and there you go, Grogu is complete in his pram. For $100, this is actually pretty solid, and especially given the prices of the rest of this entire wave, I'm very happy that they were able to actually make this one at least somewhat fair for the price you have to pay. It's funny how the most expensive set in the wave is absolutely the best priced one, but unfortunately it is how it is. That's just how it is for this particular wave, and it is very, very nice to see this nice printed plaque here, which has all sorts of information about the character, what he likes to eat, his main mode of transport, as well as Din Djarin being his primary associate. Just a really nice printed plaque. And yes, the little brick build for Grogu in the hover pram here is also really sweet. I think I still prefer the version that we got in the UCS Razor Crest, which was really, really nicely detailed and very rounded. I thought the sculpting on that was really nice, but this as a very, very tiny little craft is nice to get. Would have been cool to get the Mandalorian here as well, but I guess it makes sense to only include the subject of the set, which is Grogu, in a set like this. Altogether, this surprisingly, and I did not expect it, became one of my favorite sets of this wave of LEGO Star Wars. Usually, I much more gravitate towards the minifigure stuff and the Clone Wars era stuff because, well, that's what I grew up with, and obviously I'm very nostalgia biased towards those. But this is actually really clever. It's really nicely built. It's very, very cute as a model. I love how you can move the head around and just have him be fully articulatable with the gear function, and the price is, for once in this wave, actually very fair. So that's all I have to say about this one, and now let's move on to the summary of the wave as a whole. Alright, and with that we have summed up our look at every single one of the brand new LEGO Star Wars 2025 sets. It's a really interesting wave, and honestly has some of my favorite sets to come out for this year, like Ahsoka's Jedi Interceptor, which is amazing with fantastic minifigures. The ARC 170 Starfighter, despite being a little smaller than the previous version, is just so satisfying to play with, and it is really cool to finally get an actual exterior spaceship version of the Home One, and I definitely am a big fan of the Acclimator as well. The thing is though, the prices for this wave really do drag it down for me. I mean, $30 for the 4 Plus set is already a little much, but I can sort of excuse it because it's a 4 Plus set. But $45 for 290 pieces of the Jedi Interceptor is kinda ridiculous. Even $50 for 450 pieces for the Acclimator class ship does seem okay on paper, but after you have it in hand, it is hard to justify the spend, especially because it is pretty small. It's like about as big as the palm of my hand. And then $70 for the under 500 piece ARC 170 Starfighter is pretty wild as well. Really, the only set that seems actually fairly priced is the $100 Grogu with hover pram, which comes with 1,048 pieces and an actually pretty seriously significant build with good building techniques, and it feels very substantial in your hands. And I guess the Home One Star Cruiser for $70 with 559 pieces is a little better than at least the other sets here, but again, it's all relative, because still, compared to any other LEGO set, it's still really, really overpriced. I guess LEGO realized that Star Wars is big enough that they can basically just charge these types of prices for sets like these, and honestly, I'm really curious if this strategy is going to pay off for them. As of right now, I don't know if I can recommend strongly really any of these sets in good faith at full price, maybe outside of the Grogu with hover pram, but only if you're really into that, because they just feel a lot more expensive than they should be. The ARC 170 shouldn't be over 50. 45 would honestly be really good for that, but instead it's 70. Ahsoka's Jedi Interceptor is way more expensive than the previous versions of the Jedi Interceptor just a few years ago, and inflation is not nearly enough to account for that. $45 for 290 pieces is kind of ridiculous. At least the Acclamator class assault ship does give you fairly okay value for money with the printed elements and I guess the amount of pieces included for $50, but it also still just feels very small in your hands, especially compared to a lot of other $50 LEGO sets. I don't really know what's going on with this particular wave of LEGO Star Wars, it just feels a little worse than usual when it comes to the pricing, but maybe that's just me. Let me know in the comments if you agree or disagree. I do like a lot of the sets, like build-wise, price aside. The ARC 170 is great, Ahsoka's Jedi Interceptor is pretty good. Not sure how I feel about the new cockpit, but honestly it's not that bad. I think a lot of people online are making a bigger deal of the problem than I really think it is. The build for the Home 1 Star Cruiser is phenomenal. It has great details, some fun interior Easter eggs, and it's really satisfying to get it as a final build. In fact, all of the builds here, with maybe the exception of the 4 Plus set, but again, that one really isn't for me, are pretty phenomenal. Like, the builds are fantastic, the sets themselves are great, it's just the prices that really drag down this wave for me. That's all I have to say about this wave. Thank you so much for tuning in and watching this mega review of the LEGO Star Wars 2025 sets, and let me know in the comments which ones are you planning on picking up? Which are your favorites? Do you feel that any of these are fairly priced? And if not, what prices do you think they should be coming in at? Thanks so much for watching, and be sure to like and subscribe for even more LEGO news, reviews, discussion, and analyses coming your way very soon. Thanks so much, and bye for now.